YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of Curated Topics, brought to you by Curated Sense LLC. Alright, how was everybody's weekend? I hope you all had a great weekend. I did. I actually spent some time with my extended family, went and met one of my good friends' new baby. Shout out to him. That was a great experience. Got to meet little Carl's Jr. That's my nickname for him. So that was a great experience. Got to celebrate some other family's birthday. So I had a great weekend. But how about you all? Drop it down in the comments. Let me know. What did you all do this weekend? Hope you had a great weekend. We gonna get right on into it. You know how we gotta do it every time. Candle of the evening. Now this one is crazy. This bottle is crazy. Can y'all see that? This bottle is wild. This bottle right here, it is called Deadhead Rum. Now if you're gonna drink, please do so responsibly. But Deadhead Rum is actually something I came across. I was in this, there's a liquor like emporium out by my old job, and I was out there one day and I saw this. I saw this, and I saw another bottle as well made by Deadhead Rum. It's actually a monkey head, and if you've seen my Instagram page, you've probably seen that bottle as well. And this thing is crazy. I love those bottles. The monkey head is actually their dark chocolate rum. Very tasty, very good for if you want to do like a dessert liquor or something like that. I have experimented with that and actually mixed it with ice cream, and it was real good. So as I said before, if you're gonna drink responsibly. But this here is actually it's an aged rum. It's been aged 6 years. Very smooth, really good. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for Candle of the Evening. Now, you know, we gotta do the smell test. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Smells so good. That right there is the Smoldering Patchouli. Now, I've talked about that before. This is a woodsy scent. It's part of our kind of fall line, our fall woodsy line. And this scent is sophisticated and warm, very earthy with a hint of sweetness. It has contributions from cedarwood, vetiver, incense, and rich patchouli. That patchouli is what gives it that sweet finish right at the end. This scent is actually a personal favorite of mine. I love how it smells in the candle. I love how it smells like something is burning, but in a good way. It really gives you that warm and cozy vibes of being like by the fire, all those sorts of things. So check us out online. That's curatedsenseLLC.com. Make sure you get you one. Shout out to all my contestant winners. We did a giveaway last week and the turnout was really good. I was actually very impressed by the turnout. So shout out to everybody who participated in that giveaway. Might do another one here this month. I might actually do like a giveaway once a month. I might do that, or once every other month, something like that. I really like the turnout, so it's kind of got the wheels turning on some ideas for some other things. So be on the lookout for that. If you follow us on Instagram, that's at curated_sense_LLC. Make sure you're on the lookout. We're putting out some big announcements coming soon. I have a big announcement coming Thursday for both the candle business and the channel. So make sure you guys are on the lookout. But let's get on into the topics. What are we talking about for sports today? All right, let's talk about some sports. So I want to talk about the Cavs right quick. And you know, this year, man, I see something happening, and I hope that it doesn't happen within the playoffs. I gotta say, these NBA refs, they kind of triggering me. I gotta say, they are triggering me. I am not liking it. So when we had 3 games, I think, since I've last been on and talked about the Cavs, maybe 4. But in 3 of the games, you can obviously see that these refs are missing calls, making the wrong calls, and it's making me want to actually think about a potential rule change. I think that there should be a potential rule change, especially when it comes for the challenges. Now, right now, you only get 2 challenges. It's similar to football. You get 1 challenge, and if you get it right, you get a second challenge. It doesn't cost you a timeout if you get the challenges correct. Now, I think that in some cases, I think teams should maybe get 3 challenges for each game. I'm thinking about the Detroit Pistons game specifically. Now, that was a nail biter. That was a great game. Both teams played like they wanted to win. But towards the end of the game, you could see where the referees missed some calls. Dennis Schroeder driving to the basket, doesn't get a foul call, and he got knocked to the floor. There was a foul that was missed on Sam Merrill after the game went into overtime, and that would have potentially either tied the game or won us the game. When the league did their 2-minute report on that game, they said that there was 2 or 3 missed calls on the Cavs side that would have won them the game. This is not good for the league. It's not. Now, if you're going to call the game one way, call it that way. If you're going to call it another way, make sure that you are being consistent with the way you're calling things. If you're going to let them play, I have no problem with that. Let them play. Let them be a little physical. But if you are going to be ticky-tack on one side but not on the other, that's where I got a problem. And I think some of these referees should be looked into. There has to be a way to hold these refs accountable. There has to be, because you're costing teams games. You're costing guys their own money and things like that. I'm just not liking it, and it's definitely triggering some emotions. I was screaming at the TV watching that Detroit game, screaming. Even in the game where we won against Brooklyn recently, I could see it coming where, okay, this game is going to get given away. It's going to get given away. We don't have Donovan on the floor right now. That was where that was especially getting me in the Detroit game. I'm like, we didn't have Donovan. We didn't have James Harden either. And you mean to tell me we were winning pretty much the whole game? And you mean to tell me you just letting the Pistons slide back in with these calls and things like that? I was like, oh yeah, y'all playing favorites. Y'all playing favorites for sure. Now, I can't prove that, but I'm just a casual fan watching. I'm like, they missing these calls. They making these weird calls. I'm not with it. The other thing, though, this is the other thing that's kind of triggering me a little bit. And it's not so much a little concerning. When James Harden is bringing up the ball, and a lot of other analysts have talked about this, the game slows down. It slows down a lot. And I don't want us to get into that point where we start passing the ball late into the shot clock and guys can't hit shot. I'd like to see him be a little bit more aggressive in starting the offense and initiating the offense. He kind of is a little bit too smooth for me right now, and I saw that especially in the Brooklyn game. Now, he played well. He played very well. Almost had a triple-double. I want to say he had 24 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. So very good game from James Harden. But what I did see, it took us a long time to grab the lead in that game. And that team really wasn't that good. They had young, fresh legs, so they played well. They played better than what others would expect. But what I saw from James, he was too cool. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, okay, yeah, I know I'm about to cook these guys. But then there was times where the ball got turned over. The defensive pressure, you could tell, was affecting him. And although he played it cool and we still got the win, I'd like to see a little bit more intensity from him. That's what I'll say. I'd like to see a little bit more intensity. But overall, I did enjoy the performance that he put on. He weathered the storm. He let his experience do the talking. There's a specific play I'm thinking of. He had been getting pressed all night long by the defense, and he had gotten the ball, picked up his dribble, and you could tell the defender thought that he had James. He was guarding him on the left side. He contested the shot very well. This was an excellent closeout and contest. And instead of shooting the ball, James pump faked, dipped under. He dipped under and shot it with the left hand and made it. And it looked like an amazing play. It really did. It was an amazing play. So shout out to James Harden for that play, because it came at a pivotal moment in the game. But before that, there were a couple times where there were some turnovers and things like that, where I think that a little bit more intensity on the offensive side, a little more urgency. That's what I'm looking for. A little bit more urgency, I think, would have thrown that defense off balance. You get the ball swinging a little bit more, and then we can really get into some sets, really get into our offense. But otherwise, I thought that game was great. Great job, Cavs, for getting the win, especially after two very questionable games, and not necessarily on the Cavs' part. These were questionable games when it came to how the games were called referee-wise. The game against the Bucks, now, I didn't see that whole game, but, you know, in talking with some other people who did, it was very questionable about fouls. They were missing things like that. Now, here's the other part that I want to talk about. Shout out to my boy, Jarrett Allen. Jarrett Allen is balling right now. He was actually the Eastern Conference Player of the Month of February. He's averaging over 20 points per game and 10 rebounds per game. So he is on a pretty large double-double streak right now. And not only that, but, and this happened a little bit before James Harden came to the team, but we're seeing the team utilize Jarrett Allen more and in the right ways. We're getting him the ball in the post. We're getting him the ball right where he likes it so that he can make baskets. He shot like something crazy. It was like 73% or 75% from the field for the month. That's crazy. That is a crazy stat line, but that's the type of production and efficiency we can get from him when we play through him the right way. Shout out to James Harden once again. He is helping our bigs flourish in that post game, flourish in that pick and roll game, and he is delivering some very good passes. In the game against Brooklyn, Jarrett Allen had 20 points. He might have had 22. Mobley had 18 or 19. So we're getting that production that we should be getting from our big men. Same in the Detroit game, same in the Milwaukee game. You know, we're starting to see them grow and flourish, and that's what we want to see. Now, as far as the NBA, please, y'all got to do something about these refs, man. I know everybody says it. You can't find me because I'm just a fan. I'm not a professional basketball player. I'm just a fan. I just watch games. But what I see is a lot of inconsistency. And I'm not just saying that as a Cavs fan. I've seen it in other games as well. You got to tighten that up a little bit. Pause. I'm actually enjoying a lot of these NBA games that have happened, especially as of late. We've had a lot of great games, a lot of overtime games. And, you know, some people complain, oh man, the games just keep going on and on. I'm not mad at all. Please. If they could all go to overtime, well, not all of them, but, you know, I'm here for the great games. So keep it up, keep on going. I am really tuned in this season. Tomorrow, Tuesday, we play the Pistons again. This time we'll be at home. I might go to that game. You never know. Who knows? Might have to slide through because I'm enjoying what I'm seeing. And hey, I got to give it to them right now. You know, my concerns were about the playoffs, and they still there. But I am liking the way that we are playing with James Harden, and I like the way that we're playing with these new guys who have come in. I was sad to see the other guys go, but shout out to these new guys for making their presence known. I got to give it up to Keon Ellis. I didn't even know who you were before you joined the team. His defensive presence is there. I like the scrappiness on defense. I like that we got a perimeter defender. And shout out to Schroeder. Schroeder brings the energy, he brings the urgency and the intensity that we need, and he's also a scrappy player as well. So, you know, I am liking these new additions. I think it's helped turn us around kind of the way we need to. I want to say we went 8-3 in the month of February, so not too much to complain about there. Let's keep it on going. Let's get on a little streak, y'all. Let's try to secure that second or third spot going into the playoffs, and we can really try to do something. So that's all I got for the Cavs on tonight. We're gonna move on after this commercial break. we got ads, y'all. Alright, so we're going to get into the motivational piece tonight. We are continuing the emotional intelligence. And that is this book right here. Great, you can actually see it this time. So, what we're talking about tonight, I kind of mentioned this in my last video. I split up the chapter because, first of all, it was kind of a lot of content. I didn't want to make the video too long, but also this second part it's kind of heavy a little bit. It's a little heavy, so I wanted to prepare us all, and I really wanted to give each section of that chapter its due. So tonight we're going to talk about triggers and hijackings when it comes to emotional intelligence. Now, what are triggers? Triggers are an event that generates a prolonged emotional reaction. This emotional response can be initiated by a smaller event that is reminiscent of a larger tragic moment in time. It's usually shaped by our personal history. So we had something happen to us and something small reminds us of that moment, and it can be consciously or subconsciously, and then that elicits an emotional reaction from us, usually a pretty intense emotional response. These reactions can also be brought on by similar situations. So you can be in a situation that was very similar to something else that you went through, and that causes an emotional reaction as well. And like I said, these emotional reactions, they are usually caused by some intense emotional response. So the emotions that you feel during this triggering event is going to be pretty intense, pretty strong. And a lot of the times when we respond to these situations, we respond emotionally without even thinking about it or without even noticing that we're being triggered. How many of us we've gotten triggered over something, and then we just kind of acted, and we didn't realize, oh shoot, I'm responding to something else that triggered me, but I didn't even realize it in that moment, or I didn't even notice that it was happening. I didn't even notice that I was triggered. So usually the more intense the emotion is, the more likely you are to allow that emotion to dictate your reaction. And as I said in the last video, that happens because our emotional center, it comes first. In the path of how we receive stimuli, our emotional center of our brains comes before the logical one. And so that sometimes allows our emotions to dictate our actions. Now, when you have triggers and things like that, if a trigger is strong enough, if it elicits an intense emotion where that intensity is high enough, that emotion can end up hijacking your actions. And that's called an emotional hijacking. It is a rapid and intense emotional reaction where the emotional center of your brain overrides the logic and rational center of your brain, and that causes a fight, flight, or freeze kind of response. Now, this usually happens when triggers are related to past traumas or perceived threats. That causes us to act very impulsively. It can lead to emotions like anger, isolation, or complete shutdown. This usually causes us to do something that we end up regretting. Now, we have all probably experienced a trigger in our life. We've all experienced an emotional hijacking in our life. I'm thinking about myself, for example. I think about times where, specific to me, I've been triggered by things like a death in the family. That is something where that's a situation that's very difficult to even fathom, to even think about. And then when you're going through it, you have all sorts of emotions take place. You have a whole range of emotions take place, from anger to fear to sadness, depression, anxiety, all sorts of things. So that was a trigger for me. Another one, and this is more specific to my own personal situation, is going through money problems. That's something that I have talked about in previous videos, where I had to leave my high school. I was at a private school. I had to leave because we experienced the recession and it affected our family. And so that caused issues for me. So now when, it makes me think about how I handle money a little bit differently, and I try to avoid going through those same issues, right? Y'all can't see my hands. I try to avoid going through those same issues. Imagine this is me Euro stepping around money problems. I try to avoid that, and I try to plan for, okay, well, what if something does happen? Those kind of events I have recognized as triggering. Those are triggering for me. And that's why having that emotional intelligence, that awareness is so important. When you're aware of the things that bother you, that's the first step into you taking control over yourself to deal with those things. So, as I said before, I went through something in high school where, all right, I don't have enough money to pay for high school anymore. I experienced some similar things in college, but this time I was a lot more prepared. I made sure that, my grades were in line and where they needed to be so that I could apply for scholarships, so that I could get scholarships. I made sure that I had people in my corner. So if I needed to, get a job or something like that, I had the ability to. The biggest thing was the scholarships. I had to make sure that I was in position to get scholarships so that, okay, finances isn't something that I necessarily have to worry about. And I was able to do so. It was because of those issues that I went through before. Even when faced with that later on, I went through some anxiety. I definitely went through some fear. Definitely. And I'm not saying I handled everything perfectly. Looking back, yes, there's definitely some things that I could have done differently. But when it came to handling those situations, I still made sure, I feel what I feel your feelings, but then take a step back, breathe, allow the situation to process within your brain, and then let's figure out a way to attack it, right? Let's figure out a way to respond that's productive, that's positive, and that's going to get me where it is I need to go. Help me do what it is that I need to do. So let's talk about triggers for a second. What are some of the biggest triggers and hijackers that you can experience? Well, I talked about, some of them, but there's life and death situations. Are you in danger? How do you respond to those types of moments? Those can be traumatic in their own right. And I'm not just talking about person to person. It can be you in an unstable environment. Those types of things can be triggering. I'll give you another example, and this comes from my own life. I was on a family road trip. We went down to Alabama to visit some family, and we were driving, and we were actually coming back on our way back up when this particular event happened. We're on the highway. It's about 2 lanes, and I'm in the passenger seat. My god sister was with us. She was in the seat behind us. She sleep. And as my mom's driving, I'm looking, and we were talking about stuff, and I'm looking, and I'm like, Mom, those look like headlights. And she's like, oh, they're probably, coming around the bend or whatever. There was a bend on the highway coming up. And I'm like, no, those look like they're on our side. Those look like they're on our side of the highway. And as it's getting closer and closer, she's like, those do look like they're on our side. So we're trying to figure out what to do. We're on a 2-lane highway. It's us, and then there's a FedEx semi-truck directly next to us. It's nighttime, so you can't just see all like that. So I'm like, those look like headlights in our lane. And this is all happening very fast. Very, very fast. Turns out there was somebody driving the wrong way on the highway, coming right at us. Thank God we're still here. We didn't get into an accident. We were able to avoid that because the FedEx truck got as far over as they could without dangerously going off the highway, and then we got as close to the FedEx truck as we could without dangerously running into them, and then this car sped past us. Now that has been a triggering event for me. Just the other day I was driving, and I wasn't on the highway, I was on just a regular road, but I'm on a one-way street, and as I'm going down, it was on a hill. So as I'm going down the hill, I see headlights coming up the hill, and I'm like, Here we go again. This is me driving by myself this time. Luckily, I had enough room to move into another lane. There was nobody next to me or anything like that. So I had enough room to move into another lane. And as I'm driving, I'm honking the horn because this person is coming at me. They're not paying attention and they are in my lane. Now, once I got past them, I pulled the car over. Once I got past them, I pulled the car over. I think I pulled over on like a side street just so that, if they needed to turn around or something, they could, because I could hear cars behind me honking at this person as well. I had to just take a second for myself because that really triggered me. And I haven't experienced that in that particular story ever before. Like, I was like, I had to take my minute, I had to do a little prayer. Thank you, God, because it's not always about what does happen. Sometimes it's about what doesn't. And, I took that time to just kind of relieve myself of all the emotions that I was feeling, because I was feeling fear, sadness, anger, all of that, all at one time. That's kind of how you have to do with some of these emotions. And that's how some of these emotions can affect you just by you being in a similar situation. So you've got life and death situations, you've got traumatic events, anger, fear, sadness, anxiety, family events like a death of a loved one. Those are not the only ones. Now I want to ask you this, and I want you all, if you all make it to this point of the video, drop it in the comments. I'm very interested in this aspect. Are there positive triggers? Are there positive emotions that trigger you to do something that you wouldn't normally do? Are there positive triggers that hijack your actions? Are there positive triggers that hijack your emotional intelligence? What about happiness? Have you ever been so happy that you did something out of the ordinary? What about love? What about excitement? Which one of those three things elicited a trigger for you? A lot of the times we put that negative connotation on triggers where we think of triggers as only negative events. But do you think there's such thing as a positive trigger? So I want to know. Drop that in the comments and let me know. I'm asking that because those are also intense emotions. And here's the thing, even in an intense emotional state, we have to practice and exercise emotional control in order to react appropriately to events in our life. And that's easier said than done. I'm not perfect at it. I'm certainly not perfect at it. There's a lot of things I need to work on as well. But that's part of why I'm going through this book for myself too. I've read it once already, and now I want to share it out with you all because hopefully it can help somebody as well. We have to use reasoning to determine if the emotion we are feeling is an appropriate reaction to what is going on. And like I said, that sounds easier said than done, right? To be honest with you, it sounds like that's a lot to do while we're experiencing a trigger. It's very easy to say this stuff while you're looking back on what happened, right? But when you're in that emotion, when you are feeling that feeling, this can be a little difficult. Honestly, it can. This can be a little bit difficult. What I am trying to do is help prepare. Just give you a few tips, give you some things to think about so that if something does happen, if you do experience a trigger, you now have something on your brain that you can go back to be like, okay, let me get myself under control, right? One of the best things that you can do, just remember to breathe. When you're experiencing a trigger, whether that's good, bad, otherwise, remember to breathe. Try to get it into your logic and reasoning center of your brain. Try to not allow it to hijack your behavior. Try to consider this. Is what's going on worth the intense reaction that I'm thinking about responding with? Try to think about this. If you're able to in that moment, how would you react to this situation if it wasn't a trigger for you? So if this didn't bother me at all, how would I react? How would I go about it? What would I do? And then what consequences will come from the reaction? What are consequences? Consequences are the results of our actions. They are how our actions affect ourselves and others around us. So think about it. How will your reaction affect you either in the short term or the long term, and how will it affect others? Once again, this is all easier said than done, and it's especially easier said than done when you're in the moment, right? Because hey, in the moment we are feeling a lot of things. So like I said before, just make sure you take a step back and breathe. Try to take the moment in, try to analyze what is going on around, what is actually happening, and take those 2, 3, 4 breaths. Let some time set in so that you can see, okay, what's going on. You got to let things process in your brain, and that's not always instantaneous. See, our brains are wired to make us emotional creatures. Our first reaction to something, it's usually going to be an emotional one, and that is because that emotional center comes first. When you receive stimulus, it goes through your emotional center before it ever even gets to your logic and reasoning center. So yeah, that first reaction is probably going to be an emotional one. Now, how do we combat that? Look, you're going to have your feelings, you're going to have your emotions, but try to refrain from acting on your emotions just for a little bit of time. Now, sometimes this might take seconds, sometimes it might be minutes, sometimes it might even be hours, because it all depends on the intensity of the emotion that you're feeling in that moment. I know some people, man, me included, I have felt a certain kind of way, maybe for days. And it's important, especially in those moments, that you try to remain calm, try to remain from acting on the emotion, because that usually means there's something serious is going on, right? By taking that break, by giving yourself that time to process, it's going to allow you to process your emotions, but also allow that situation to enter the logic and reasoning center of your brain, so that now you can think about it from a logical aspect. Okay, now this person just made me mad. I can't just fly off the handle. Let me take this step back. I can think about it logically. You know, they made me mad because they having a bad day. I'm gonna keep it pushing. I'm gonna move on. I've actually had that happen to me, where being in the work environment, somebody's having a bad day. They take something that I said a weird way, and they reacted to me with a very intense emotional response. And I try to pride myself on remaining calm and remaining under control. So I say, okay, look, I might have had an initial what the hell's going on, but then I take my step back and I assess the situation. And I've had many a time where the person who I had some conflict with, or the person who, you know, we may have not been seeing eye to eye, you know what I'm saying? But because I was able to keep myself under control, it kind of helped them take a step back. And sometimes that can help you as well. When you take a step back, whatever it is that's causing you or trying to cause you to be triggered, that might take a step back too. So your calmness might calm someone else. And then, you know, we were able to talk about what was going on calmly. And then they came to the realization, hey, you know what? My bad. I'm having a rough day. I was triggered and my actions were, you know, being pushed upon to you. And I can look at it and be like, you know what? I completely understand that. I've been there before in my own life. I get it. Now, don't let it happen again, but I understand. I'm just playing around. But, you know, that's where emotional control, emotional intelligence, and emotional maturity can help you and others in a situation. Now, as I said before, I know all of this is easier said than done, but finding some small techniques like breathing. I have seen where some people have the rubber band on their wrist for when they get anxious, and they pop the rubber band. You know, some of those things actually do work, and that can really be a technique. Those kinds of techniques can really help you train your brain on how to respond to triggers and avoid those emotional hijacking. Now, I want to say this. I know I've said that this is all easier said than done, but it honestly, you truly have the power to control how you react. And what gives you that power is having that emotional awareness and understanding what it is you're feeling in those moments. I know I make it sound simple, but here's the thing. It truly can be. It truly can be. Not all the time, because listen, we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to have times where we aren't always under control. But when you have that level of emotional awareness, it makes it simple. It really does. And that's because a lot of our emotions are easily recognizable. How many words do we use to describe our emotions? We use a lot, right? We use a lot. And a lot of those small words really can be included on a much larger scale. So when you think about it, a lot of the times, especially in those triggering moments, those hijacking moments, our emotions are very intense, and all those small words that we would use to describe our emotions, they're all just derivatives of 5 core feelings. That's happiness, sadness, anger, fear, and shame. All those 5 core feelings, they have varying levels of intensity, and that's where the smaller words for emotions come in. But when you have that intense feeling, it really falls under those 5 words. And here's the thing, the more intense the emotion is, the closer it is to that derivative. So that means high intensity emotions, those are what lead to those triggers and hijackings. So if you can keep your emotions to where you're not feeling them that intense, you can probably avoid them being triggers and hijackings. Of those 5 core feelings, most of them are negative. Almost all of them are negative. You got sadness, anger, fear, and shame. Those are all negative emotions, and they're all different negative emotions. But what's the other one? Happiness. Now remember, I asked that question before where I asked, can happiness be a trigger and can it lead to an emotional hijacking? I think that it can. Happiness can be a trigger and it can lead to an emotional hijacking. Oftentimes it's, when we want to celebrate, we did something well, so then we want to celebrate, and sometimes we can celebrate a little too much. We can get a little too happy. We can, that dopamine, it can be a little too strong, and we end up doing things that are out of our traditional norm, and that causes us to do things that we may regret later as well. This is why balance of emotions is so important, and this is why emotional control is so important, why emotional intelligence and emotional awareness is so important. I'm not saying we should never be happy, because we should want to be happy as the standard, right? We also can't avoid the others. We can't avoid the other 5. There's going to be moments where we feel shame. There's going to be moments where we feel fear and are afraid. There's going to be moments of anger. That just comes with life. But learning that emotional control, learning how to have balance, that's what's going to keep us from allowing our emotions to hijack our behavior. When you talk to a lot of successful people, they use this phrase. They say, never get too high on the highs and never get too low during a low. That is all about emotional control. That is all about being balanced. Now, a lot of people might say, oh, well, that sounds like you being nonchalant. No, nonchalant comes with a level of numbness. I'm not saying don't ever feel your emotions, but don't allow them to put you so far in a state where they are now hijacking your behavior. That's the key. The key is you want to feel your emotions, but you don't want to be controlled by your emotions. You want to be the one doing the controlling. So those are some of the things that I've got on that topic. I hope you all can relate to it. I hope it helps somebody. I really do. And I hope you all are able to use some of those tips. Hey, try the breathing technique. Try doing the rubber band thing. Find something that helps you get away from those triggers and those triggering feelings, so that you can get your thoughts into that logic and reasoning center, and you can control your emotions. You're not letting them control you. So that's it on the topic for tonight. I know that was a little heavy, but let's lighten it up with some music. Let's talk about some music. All right, the album that I want to talk about tonight. Now, album of the week. This album was super fire in my opinion. I really liked it. The album is called Octane by Don Toliver. And, I gotta say, Don Toliver is one of those guys where he had to grow on me, pause. He had to grow on me. When I first heard him, I wasn't really vibing with his sound. I was like, who is this guy trying to sing like a robot? And then it's all high pitched and all of that. And it was actually kind of similar to The Weeknd, not in the way that they sound, but just in my initial reaction to them, right? So I wasn't really feeling either one of their voices at first. And somewhere along the way, I was listening to a song and I was like, hey, yo, this is hard. Who is this? And it was Don Toliver. And so I started, listening to his music a little bit more and a little bit more. And I must say, this album here, I am really liking it. He's got a song that's pretty viral right now. It's called Body, and he has a sample from another song, and then he goes and does his own, version of it, and it's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty good. That's probably my second favorite song on the album. My favorite song though is called Gemstones, and I'm gonna be quite honest with you. I know the words because I've listened a lot, but when I first heard it, I didn't care about any of the words. It was all about the beat. That beat is crazy. Gemstones, that's gonna be my new party song right there. It's that type of song where it's very lit, very upbeat, and it's the kind of song I would play if I'm about to get dressed to like go out. That's how much that song, that's the positive energy behind that song. That song is lit. Do you see my face right now? My eyes, they all positive energy, and this like hype. You be up here listening to that song. I really like that song. I really like Body. I also like the song Tiramisu. So check it out. Let me know what you all think. That is it for today. I'm gonna say one more time, shout out to Don Toliver. That's Octane. Go and check it out. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. Also, let me know about the topic. I am trying to get us more engaged, so I'd like to see, maybe some more comments on the content. If you have your own stories to share, don't share too much. I don't want, you don't have to put your private moments out there, pause. But, if you have any words of encouragement or any techniques that you can think of, if you have anything that you just want to say, drop it in the comments. Let's get some engagement going. I want to start these conversations because this is the most important thing. If we're ever going to be better, if we're ever going to do better, we have to address what's going on and we have to talk about things. Let's get the discussion going. I want to say thank you to all my listeners. I appreciate all the feedback that I've been receiving, whether that's somebody dropping a comment or somebody hitting me up in the background to let me know, hey, you're doing a good job, keep going. I appreciate all of that. Thank you to my subscribers. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so. We're building each other up out here. That's men, that's women, that's everybody, and we build it as we fly it. I will be dropping another video this week. I have an announcement coming up. I'm doing something very special, and so I'm going to be promoting that a lot over the next 2 months. So be on the lookout. I will be dropping that on Thursday. So, as I always say, I'll catch y'all on the next one. Have a great week, everybody.